Hey, what's up, everybody? We got a nice interview for you. I want to introduce Ed. Been an OG in the cannabis game for a while. And how'd you get started?
Well, this is probably a common story. People from my era, late 70s, early 80s. You got a couple phone calls from your friends. And the weed guy's coming around. Everybody gathers up their money. They show up at the house, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever. Weed guy ain't there by 10. He calls, he says he's running late. And around 12 o'clock, everybody leaves. This happened a lot. So the first opportunity that I saw was just in selling weed, because all you have to do is be reliable. That's all, be reliable. People would sell you an ounce, it was 21 grams. Sell them a 30-gram bag. And, however, I went to college as a chemistry major. And it occurred to me, as I'm taking a plant physiology class, that you can grow any plant just about anywhere. You just have to mimic what's going on outdoors and know a little bit of basic chemistry. And so when I graduated from college in 1985, that's when I started cultivating. And I knew a guy who'd been in the business for 15 years. He got me started, almost like an apprenticeship. It's just that as I furthered my education, I got into a lot more things, and I was running a toxicology lab at one time, so I was testing my product. I wanted to put numbers to it. And then we really dove into the plant physiology and plant pathology, and coming at it from a purely academic standpoint. It wasn't that I didn't see the books that were being written by Rosenthal and Cervantes. I did. I also found a lot of errors in there, and myths, misconceptions, and so at any rate, that's how I got into it. And in 97, when Prop 215 passed in California, by the way, I'd been in pharmaceutical research, calcium channel blockers, ACE inhibitors, but I was always interested in cannabinoids, and I knew that there had to be therapeutic effects beyond glaucoma.
What year was that around that you started, that you knew this early on?
Probably in the late 80s.
Okay.
By the late 80s, especially after the drug Nabilone came on the market, and there were problems with it, but nonetheless, it was an analog of THC, and I was actually approached about doing some research with that. In fact, that research with Nabilone, it was in the 80s, and War on Drugs killed the funding for that. But nonetheless, I was just concentrating on one thing: producing a flower with the highest THC content I could get and the lowest CBD content I could get, because I knew that CBD attenuated the effects of THC, and THC interacts with the endocannabinoid system, and CBD does not. Okay? CBD does have some therapeutic effects, but we don't really even know what they are. THC, we know what they are. We know where they interact. And that means there's clues as to things these could be used for. We had a patient with, because I primarily started off as medical, and we had a patient with Huntington's chorea. Hey, they were going to put a feeding tube in him and put him in a hospice. He lived for another 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And yes, using a THC extract. And yes, if I wanted to get into it, I could get into the biochemistry of it and the mechanism of action by which it alleviated his symptoms. Now, it wasn't going to cure his disease, but it greatly alleviated his symptoms. He gained 30 pounds. We had him up and walking. The last thing we were trying to do was get his speech back. That didn't work out. COVID, ended up locked up in a federal facility and died a few months later. We weren't able to get his medicine to him.
Yeah. So
But-
you think with if the pandemic didn't happen, you could have even extended his life more?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We could have kept going a little bit longer. I knew that we could, because they did have to up his dose twice, and I knew we could do that at least 2 more times. So, yeah, that definitely shortened his life.
Okay, so you got into the chemistry of things, and what led you to the next steps towards moving towards today?
Well, in 1997, the authorities suggested I might feel comfortable living in another state.
That was nice of them saying that.
Yes. And as it turns out, I knew Prop 215 was going to be voted on and probably pass. And I decided that Southern California would be a nice place to go. I had friends who had lived in LA. They told me, don't go there. So it was San Diego by default. It was San Diego by default. Do I regret my decision? Not at all. Not at all. And, but now what I'm primarily interested in is producing the highest quality product that I can, and because at least half of my patients now are medical, glioblastomas, MS, a lot of these people who are receiving cancer chemotherapeutic agents are immune suppressed. So the product I produce has to be pharmaceutical grade. And I was in pharmaceutical research, and I know what that means. And so the grow system I use is completely enclosed. Nothing comes in from outside. All the cloning is sequential cloning from the previous crop. We go through a sterilization procedure every 3 months in that grow room that is probably overkill. But and I'm very into numbers. I ran a toxicology lab. I did GC mass spec. So when I send my work out to a lab, and I use a lab in San Francisco because it's overseen by a PhD analytical chemist. He doesn't mind talking to me on the phone. They have done work for me for free when we were working on the medication for the guy with Huntington's disease. I needed to do what's called a kinetic study, and I could do it here in my kitchen, but I couldn't do the analysis. The analysis for the samples that we were sending up was in excess of $800. And when they found out why I was doing it, they waived that. They waived it. They did it for free.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah. Met some nice people in the business.
Would you want to mention them?
Yes, and Resco Labs in San Francisco. I highly recommend Resco Labs.
So we're talking somebody that is a scientist, longtime cannabis advocate, grower, also had a background in toxicology, recommends this lab.
Yes, highly recommend this lab. And yeah, they give me good, accurate numbers. And they've been in food and drug testing for probably 60, 70 years. So they weren't just a lab that was set up for testing weed. Now, these are good all-around chemists who can actually answer questions when you call up. particularly because I'm a chemist and I'm going to have questions that are technical.
Got it. So I know you take a lot of pride in your grows. You take a lot of pride. It's not just like you're not in the you're objectivist about how you go at it. You're not like, you just don't want to just like feel good about something and say this is the best grow ever. How do you measure that besides the toxicology?
The lab reports, the numbers, but I frequently do just ask customers what their opinion is. And the last customer, and I can pull it up on my telephone because it wasn't that long ago, said she wasn't happy with the last bag because it didn't look right. It didn't look right. I said, did you smoke it yet? And she said, no. I said, smoke it and call me back in an hour. And she wrote back, holy shit, it's a 9. Okay? And it's only because this last crop was a blend of our final outdoor grow combined with the indoor grow. And we used, against my better judgment, the outdoor grow, we had so much damn weed, we couldn't do it all by hand. And we did use an automated grower, or a dryer.
Got it.
Yeah, that over-dried things, and then when we went to destem it, it fell apart, and yeah, it didn't look real pretty.
But still, got the job done.
Well, I did most of the trimming of that stuff in 20 minutes into trimming it. My hands were black. So I knew we had a superior product.
Yeah, for sure.
But people judge things on how they look and how they smell. And, those two things, they don't really tell you anything. The first thing I do when I get a bag of weed is I smell it. I know full well that means nothing. It's not telling me anything about it. And I don't care if your buds are big or small or if they've all crumbled up. I just want to put it in a pipe and take a hit. And then I'll decide what it is.
It's interesting because when you're tasting food, how it looks and how it smells is more than how it tastes on your taste buds.
Well, yes, it is. It's the presentation. It's what I always say about when I called, like this last crop, I called it ugly. I said, man, this stuff's ugly. But it's fucking potent. And yes, a large part of it's that presentation. You go into one of those fancy restaurants, they have a red colored pepper and they have a little pile of this that's kind of teal and it's kind of colorful and it's like a little work of art. Now, here's the thing. I can eat 6 of those plates and still walk out of that place hungry. Okay? It looked real pretty, probably cost a lot of money. But in the end, if I had to order 6 of them to feel satisfied, did I really make out? I mean, was the presentation really that worth it?
For sure. Perception is so important. But as somebody that's more grounded in reality for your grows, I mean, presentation is the end all be all. How's it going? We're gonna go into more information. So tell me about your apprenticeship program and why you got into that and what strengths have come out of that.
Well, the apprenticeship program came about from a class I was teaching. And the class started off with maybe 7 or 8 students. I was giving them exams. I was actually teaching them the theory of everything. We were covering light. We were covering wavelength, frequencies, so they could identify wavelength and know what light source it was coming from. We're actually getting into a lot of the nitty-gritty details of growing and selecting lights and fertilizers and everything. And, well, one by one, people were failing out. And I was eventually left with like 3 students. And I told them, we're just going to discontinue the class because there just doesn't seem to be enough interest. And one of the students, who was a C student, by the way, wasn't the best student in the class. He stayed afterwards and he begged me to continue teaching him. And so Josh became my first apprentice. I thought, okay, well, rather than work with a group of people, we'll work with one person at a time. Because I've come up with, hang on a second, I have a hard time saying it. Because I've come up with a very novel growing technique that I guarantee you nobody else is using. If I explained it to them, they'd probably say I'm doing it wrong. And I don't care because it works, and it works all the time. And so Josh just started getting a lot more hands-on information. I continued with the lectures, I continued with the tests, and put him to work with some real hands-on stuff. And he was with me 4 years. After 2 years, we had the trimming team and everybody, we had a sheet cake, got a 2-year technical certificate. He stayed on another 2 years and got a technologist certificate. Are we accredited by anybody? No. However, funny story, my second apprentice, Elvira, very enthusiastic. Elvira was picking up on some of the basic chemistry, atomic theory she was picking up quickly. And one day I gave her a math test. I figured this kid graduated from San Diego Public School. At best, she can add, subtract, and maybe multiply and divide. No, I started writing out polynomials. She knew the quadratic equation. She understood functions. I said, this girl is like a trig and pre-calc class away from being able to actually take a college calculus class. She graduated from high school 10 years earlier. So she still retained all this stuff. And so Elvira was with me 2 years, but then I encouraged her to apply to college, and she did, to a junior college. And after 2 years, she graduated with a 3.2 grade point average, and she is now a biochemistry major at Western Washington University.
Beautiful.
And so, yeah. Now my third apprentice, Eddie, he worked out fine for a while. The workload was a little bit heavy on Eddie, so presently I'm without an apprentice. However, Josh now runs his own business. We built Liberty Farms for him to run. So he's got his own business, and Elvira's in college.
Nice. So you're looking to do that further on with other people? Or
Yes, yeah. I'd like to bring in another apprentice. I'm hunting right now.
Got it.
And I find that under 30 is good because they're a little more impressionable. And somebody with some science background really helps. Even if it's just high school biology and chemistry, you got something to work with.
Got it. So, what advantage do you think you being as a grower? What advantage do you think you have as being a scientist?
Well, I understand what I'm doing. Most growers have no idea what they're doing. Many people work with witches' brews, and also I can tell you chemically exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Got it.
So, and it really helps just for diagnostic purposes. Not everything is always going to go right, but you need to be able to diagnose a problem. Look, a common thing that I've seen are people who will tell me they have a calcium deficiency. And I say, well, what are you watering your plants with? Well, tap water. Well, tap water is loaded with calcium. You don't have a calcium deficiency. Leach your plants. Collect the effluent. Check the pH. More than likely, your pH has fallen down around 5 or so, and your plant can't absorb calcium. Most of what people think are nutrient deficiencies are incorrect pHs, and most people don't know how to correctly measure the pH of their soil. And a lot of people think that leaching a plant is one of the last things you do. No, it's one of the first things you do. Once your plants are firmly rooted up in 5-gallon buckets and you turn the lights back to begin flowering, that's when you leach your plants. Okay? And typically, you're going to need 8 to 10 gallons of leaching before you get your dissolved solids down, under 500. That's why you need a dissolved solids meter. And then you have to check the pH. Because after a month in soil that uses urea as a fertilizer, your pH is probably pretty low. When the pH drops below 6.3, your plants have problems with phosphorus. You need that for flowering. But you can have a healthy plant in veg that has a pH of like 5.2. It's not going to do well when it comes time to flower it. And so the plants have to be leached. Then the pH has to be corrected. Generally, I found for a 5-gallon bucket, 200 to 300 milliliters of pH up per gallon will get your pH up around 6.8. That's where you want it. And then you have to feed it after you've leached it, because you just stripped the soil of everything. You've washed out all the bacteria. You've flushed out all the urea. You dropped your dissolved solids very low, so now the plant can absorb water very quickly. You better make sure there's some nutrient in that water. And I use Dynagrow. 10 mLs of Dynagrow, 8 mLs of pH up per gallon will give you 6.8. And you need to feed the plants with 2 gallons after leaching. Now at this point, you can put your heavy plants back, and they're not going to need to be watered for another 7 to 9 days. But you will have the perfect amount of nutrients, you will have a pH of 6, and you'll have very low dissolved solids. And we autopsy the plants. Once we harvest them, I will frequently take a harvested bucket and we will leach it. And we're going to collect the effluent, and we're going to see what the dissolved solids are, and we're going to see what the ending pH is. Because I want to know how much drift there is in there.
So you document every step along the way, and then you make adjustments as you go for the future.
See all those logbooks over there?
Yeah.
I'm old-fashioned. Most of it just goes into old laboratory logbooks. However, some of the data is taken out and put on the computer.
Got it. So as far as like the diseases that you're looking with, keeping at bay, what are some of the other ones that you've come across?
Well, we have very few here because it's an enclosed grow now, and the room's under positive pressure. So, but what will your average grower run into? Well, number one is spider mites. How do you deal with spider mites? It's a product called Forbid 4F. It's sold under another name too. I forget what it is. I've got some of it in the refrigerator. Forbid 4F. You can't ship it to California. you got to send it through a third party because it works. They don't sell it in California. It is a one-time top surface application. Spider mites live under the leaves. This stuff is systemic. You only need to spray the tops of the leaves. You'll kill everything on that frickin' leaf. It will wipe out spider mites with one spraying. It is extremely potent. And not many people know about it. Forbid 4F.
Forbid 4F.
Yes, do not spray any kind of horticultural oil on your plants. Horticultural oils are not good for them. They can clog the stomata. They can slow down respiration. Yes, they will smother bugs, but not all of them. So for spider mites, it's forbid 4F. Aphids are kind of common. Spearmethicin. Spearmethicin will kill aphids dead. You find it in the Monterey Garden Spray, which, by the way, I think you can buy at Home Depot. But a lot of compounds that have spearmethicin don't have enough. It should be a 0.45% solution. 0.45% spearmethicin. And there's two isomers, there's the A and the D, and it doesn't really matter, they both work.
Got it. So for some young growers, what's something that you would suggest them to do besides having an apprenticeship with you?
Well, a lot of gardening is a lot of basic stuff. You know, sun, soil, light, sun, clones, light. I mean, I still think that the HPS is still the gold standard. And there are still too many problems with LEDs. So HPS is, stick with HPS. Stick with 1,000-watt HPS. Get a digital ballast that gives you variable wattages. You won't have to be moving your lights up and down quite so much. And of course, it's the electrical. Don't get into this business if you don't have a course in electronics or electricity. If you don't know what Ohm's law is, if you don't know what the power equation is, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing this. You have to know how your home is wired, what fuses you have, and what sort of continuous loads you can run. Because a continuous load is not the same thing as the maximum load. Don't run over 75%. I know a lot of people say 80. Be safe. Be safe. Make sure you have enough circuit breakers. Make sure that you have enough amperage and power that you can do everything safely. Also, any time a strip leaves your wall, it doesn't have a fuse, it can catch fire, and the fuse in your house might not trip. Okay? Because that's not what fuses are designed to protect the wires in your house, not outside. Now, the one nice thing about those 6-strip power strips is they do have a circuit breaker in them. So if you must plug more than 1 or 2 units in, make sure you add everything up. Most homes have 15 amp fuses. Don't run more than 12. Okay? Don't run more than 12. And so things will be given in wattage. You have to know what the voltage is coming out of your wall, and then you can calculate amperage. And fuses are given in amps. So that's all. Just learn some simple math so you don't burn your house down trying.
Got it. So, what are all this is making me thinking? If I was a grower, I'm not a grower, but if I was a grower, I would like to think, oh, I want to grow outside. What are some of the challenges with growing outside?
Well, less control. So you are subject to weather. Liberty Farms was built up in Potrero. You can have 60-mile-an-hour winds there. Okay? It's not unusual to get hail. If there's a fire up in the mountains, it's not the fire that will get you, it's the ash falling from the sky. And the number one risk to outdoor growers is theft. It's theft. So, it's good to have dogs. It's good to have guns. It's good to have razor wire. It's good to have all kinds of warning signs. It's good to have motion detector lights.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to grow outdoor, we grow outdoors. We had 6 of the meanest frickin' dogs you ever saw. I was scared of them. We had razor wire. We had all kinds of warnings, high voltage. And yeah, went up there every weekend and shot guns. Just because we wanted them to hear bang, 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 those guys have guns. We hung a flag up there, a Gadsden flag. Yeah, we wanted to think that there's some crazy motherfuckers up there with guns. And I got up there. We had motion detector lights, but we also had lights.
Is it Gadsden Red, the don't tread on me?
Exactly.
Okay. I didn't know it by that.
Yes, yes. And we had light sensors that we put on each corner, and the reason I liked those, because it had little LED lights that beeped every couple seconds. And I had someone say, my God, Eddie, because I could see that thing from like 2 miles away. And I said, that's the idea. That's the idea. Big bugs would fly by our motion detector lights. I spent a night up there one time. Lights were off and on all night long. So yeah, we lit the place up. They got lots of dogs barking, lots of guns, lots of danger signs, razor wire. That should be a hint.
Oh, nice.
And it was in an extremely isolated area, so odds of somebody stumbling on it weren't real good. We called it Liberty Farms. We had 3 years of production up there. It was just a 24 by 24 enclosure with 25 plants. We brought in 24 pounds the first year, and the last year we brought in 30. We brought in 30. And now, it's not acres and acres and thousands of plants. We only needed 25 plants. Because in California, your average plant's going to be a pound or more. Your average plant in Pennsylvania in a cornfield is going to be 6 ounces. Big difference.
Yeah. The Flying Dutchman.
Yes.
Explain the leaching process to me.
It's the single most crucial process in growing indoors successfully. Most people do it at the wrong time for the wrong reasons. What I'm going to explain to you, if other growers see this, they're going to laugh. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, that's just it. No, this is it. The plants are going to come from the nursery. They're in 6-inch pots. They've been in there a couple of weeks. They're going to get transplanted into 5-gallon buckets. Those 5-gallon buckets are filled with Miracle Grow moisture control. Oh yeah, Miracle Grow. Yeah, we got to hear about all kinds of stuff. Listen, they use one of the highest quality sphagnum peat mosses on the market. They're not perfect. Yeah, they sometimes get plastic and stuff in there. You should be sorting that out. However, what they do is they skimp on their fertilizer. They use osmolite pellets, and the osmolite pellets contain urea. The The osmolite pellets, as they are wetted, will eventually dissolve and release the urea into the soil. This is the fertilizer. However, your plant can't use urea. The urea must first be broken down by bacteria. The byproduct of bacteria, as anybody knows who's ever gotten a cavity, is that it secretes acid. So, as your plant is growing for about the first 3 or 4 weeks, it's growing real nice. The urea is fine. The pH of your soil is dropping, but you're still within a normal operating range. However, the breakdown of the urea is causing the pH of your soil to drop. Most nutrient deficiencies are not nutrient deficiencies. The pH of your soil is incorrect. You have plenty of nutrients in there, but the pH has gotten too low. For instance, you drop below 6.3, your plant starts having problems with phosphorus. You drop even lower, you'll have other problems. So, the plants will typically stay in those 5-gallon buckets for about 3 weeks, because that's when I'm going to turn the lights back and start flowering. But it is also when I begin leaching the plants. Now, I do it in a tub, and I have 2x4s that go across, and I can put 3 of these 5-gallon buckets up on what I call leaching rails. The soil drains very well, so you don't need to worry about overwatering when you're doing this, because you're going to dump 8 to 10 gallons of water through each one of those plants. You are stripping the plants of all of its soluble nutrients, the remaining urea, and most of the bacteria. In other words, you're making a clean slate. Now, you want your dissolved solids to be under 500 parts per million. Typically, 8 to 10 gallons will get you there. However, at this point now you have a blank slate, a bucket that is basically filled with water and no nutrients for the plants or anything. So the very last step in the leaching is you must put 2 gallons of fertilizer into that 5-gallon bucket. I use Dynagrow. 10 mLs of Dynagrow to 8 mLs of pH up in a gallon. Fill the gallon halfway with water first. Do not mix these two together. One is an acid, one is a base. We don't want a reaction. Fill your gallon halfway up. Put in your 10 and your 8. Fill it the rest of the way up. And each plant gets 2 of those. That's the final feeding. And then the plants can get put back under the lights, and you are not going to need to water those plants for the next 7, 8, 9 days. They're also going to grow like a foot after you do it. They're going to shoot up like Jack and the Beanstalk.
Oh, wow.
Now the pH of your soil will be 6.8 because you pH adjusted it to 6.8. By the way, when you do the pH adjusting, you're using a gallon jug, and you typically need 200 to 300 milliliters in that gallon jug in order to move the pH from where it is to where you want it. And so you need a dissolved solids meter, a TDS meter, and you need a pH meter. And you need to know how to calibrate your pH meter so you're getting accurate numbers. But once you've adjusted the soil to a pH of 6.8, then you feed it and you put it aside. And when you are done, the pH of that soil will be about 6.5. which is perfect. It's in the perfect range. And so I leach the very first week of flowering. Now, the very first week of flowering is also known as elongation, because the plants are naturally going to elongate. And but when they hit elongation and you have done a leaching, your plants are going to noticeably grow every 24 hours that you walk in there. They get huge very quickly. That's really one of the biggest modifications that I've made to growing, and I did it 20 years ago, and I've gotten fantastic results ever since. And
why do you think there is some pushback on that? You mentioned a couple times that people think would laugh at you.
Yeah, because I don't know that anybody has actually ever come up with the idea of the clean slate. I think that people want to start with something they can finish with. Leaching, if anybody even does it anymore, because it used to be done towards the end of a grow in order to leach out excess fertilizer that was supposed to give it a better flavor. Okay? That's not when you're supposed to leach. Mm-hmm. Don't leach week 7 or 8. Leach week 1. Start with a clean slate. And then every time the plants are fed after that, it is a 10-to-8 ratio of Dynagrow to pH up. And I typically water every second or third day with 50 ounces, a little bit less than half a gallon. But once the plants fully root, you're going to need to go to a gallon. Otherwise, you're going to be watering them every day. And once I go to a gallon, then I can typically go 3 to 4 days between waterings.
Cool. Go ahead and tell us about your new grow.
Well, the newest crop is the 31st sequential cloning of Flying Dutchman 3. Flying Dutchman 3 being the strain that I've been growing for the last 8 years. And I don't have a mother plant, don't have room here to have a mother plant. So what I do is I cut my clones from the preceding crop. And this is the 31st sequential cloning. And in the nursery right now is the 32nd sequential cloning. And to all those people who use the term clone fade, it's a myth. It's a myth.
How so?
Those plants are no different than the first, second, third generations of sequential clones. Their lab tests always come back consistent. It just is what it is. It's got an 8-year track record with an average THC content of 29.2%. Its highest reading was probably about 2 years ago when we had 32.56% THC. And so it's consistently potent.
So just the environment that you create could change the grow, opposed to from the...
Well, no, there's this myth that if you take a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone, at some point you're going to cause a genetic problem at which the plant is going to be weak or not produce or whatever. And that's what they call clone fade.
Okay, got it.
The thing is that when you're on your 32nd sequential cloning, you begin to realize that that's just a myth. That's just a myth. I'm going to be sending this stuff out for testing. I would not be surprised if it's over 30%. And so, yes, these plants, I believe, are on day 48, 49, something like that. I take them out 63 days. I take them out 9 weeks. Now, they're actually done at week 8. I take week 9 because I want to just take my time in getting everything harvested the way I want it harvested, everything cleaned and dried. And but that gives me a 3-week veg cycle. It gives me a 9-week flowering cycle. And it gives me 1 week to get things cleaned up and turned around and get the next crop in there. That's 13 weeks. That's exactly 4 crops a year. So using the nursery and overlapping it with the main grow room, yeah, I can bring down 4 crops a year. And we average 2.5 to 3 pounds. It depends on whether I want to put the 4th row in or not. Right now I'm not growing with the 4th row because, well, I just had back surgery and just had problems with my heart and decided not to grow the maximum. So we cut it back to 18 and we'll probably get 2.5 pounds.
Nice. And what's the next step from here as far as for this crop?
Well, it's going to be harvested, it's going to be dried, then it's going to be sold. And then it's going to be sold. Now, we have patients. When a patient is in hospice, they get it for free. I have patients who also have serious medical illnesses. They get it at a discount. Those are my 2 classifications of patients. The ones who are not going to be with us long and the ones who have chronic problems, but they're serious. Everybody else I consider a patron. And patrons pay full price in order to subsidize the people who are getting it for free and the people who are getting it at a discount. So yes, I do have a pricing tiered structure based upon I want some weed to go to a Grateful Dead concert versus I'm in a hospice and I'm going to die. And so there's roughly 3 categories, and that's how I do it.
Nice. Cool. That's great. We're excited to do this. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me at edwardschlosser@yahoo.com. EDWARDSCHLOSSER@yahoo.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Sure. Have a good one. Peace.